Can we ask Engineer Siror from Kenya Power, are you ready for competition?
Oh yes, we are very ready for competition, and indeed we don't even see it as competition as such, because I think from the conversation, this big conversation, it is evident that there is still a segment of this country which have not been reached. So we really see any new entrant not so much as a competitor, but as a partner towards ensuring that there is no dark part of this country. And maybe, Yvonne, just as I know one of the key issues that was discussed there is the issue of losses, I would want to speak into that a bit. That whenever you have any current flowing in any conductor, you must have a loss. Because many other times when we have this discussion, the assumption that Kenyans can get is that the losses can be zero. Now, let me demystify that. That first of all, we are estimating that our commercial losses, which I think Engineer Eng, and I really respect his credentials, for indeed, I think he sits in a panel and he chairs a panel which transits electrical engineers from graduate to professional engineers. Now, when you look at that, the 6% is commercial losses. Now, if you look at the distribution, it's about 12%. When you look at transmission, it's just about 5%. Now, the real challenge, and I am really glad to be in this big conversation with it is 220 kilometers at 33 kV. Now, if you look at that line with all its spars, it's about 1,500 kilometers. It is not allowed to really move power for those great lengths at that voltage level. The ideal situation, and that's actually why when we are even discussing the various roles of the various agencies, we did discuss about KETRACO being the one responsible for transmission. If you look at the percentage of transmission lines in Kenya, we are only dealing with about 8,000. If you look at the medium voltage, we are dealing with 82,000. If you look at the lowest voltage, it is 200,000 kilometers. I don't know if there is any other country that has an LV network that constitutes over 67%. Now, what is the solution to this? And I'm really glad that my boss did mention that there's going to be a lot of investment to reduce these losses. What are the solutions? Number 132. And there are many of them. If you look at the Tarko Oltum Kitale, you look at the Rabai Kilifi, we look at the line that CS did mention, Narek Bomet, we look at Sondu Oma Beawendo. There are quite a number of projects which ought to have already been completed. What is the other issue? There are a number of projects which also ought to have been completed to move the voltage levels. Like if you look at the line right now that is serving the country from the generation, the power that was coming out of Lake Turkana, was 167 megawatts. What was arriving in Suso was 162. That is to say, we had already lost about 5 megawatts, not because of any theft, operating at 220 to start operating at 400 kV. Now, when we complete all these transmission lines, it would then mean that they will have reduced the overall losses by about 5%. So really, when we talk about losses, I think they are bypassing the meters. And the reason why we do have this big conversation today is there is a lot that the public can assist us in terms of dealing with this 6% that we are losing commercially. And I think the more we have these engagements, the more we can have a knowledgeable public so that we can work together towards dealing the entire array and all the issues that surround the losses. And that is why the key issue of reducing the technical losses is the more transmission lines we invest, the more lines we introduce. And of course, I know one of the issues that was mentioned is reliability. For reliability to be there, you must have what is called redundancy. What we mean by redundancy, you must have multiple sources of power